suck you in. You know, yeah, that's really interesting.
So the logic also is, abstract, again, same application, to take a preposterous premise and then to make it legitimate. So yes, when I explain the story now, I'm skipping all the little steps,
Sure.
but it's that leading through you from one level of preposterous and you go to the next, and suddenly you find yourself all the way down in the rabbit hole. But when you're in there, because you've now logically gone through each step, it totally makes sense. And that's the fun part of it, to kind of legitimize each little iteration till you get in there.
I did the reverse.
Right.
I was driving to work with my buddy Anthony, and we had like half an hour to drive. And Jumping Jack Flash from the Stones came on the radio. I said,
All right.
oh, did you know that song was inspired by Jack LaLanne? He's jumping around.
Jack LaLanne, the fitness guy.
Yeah, the fitness guy. He said,
I see,
he
right.
goes, I didn't know that.
Right,
Of course, I was riffing.
I did actually have heard this. I just remember, I didn't remember when you said, but yeah.
So I was just riffing, just
Right,
spur of the moment, and he believed it.
Oh, wow.
So then I said something a little bit more outlandish,
Ah.
and he still didn't get it, because he didn't understand I was joking with him.
Right. And you just kept going.
And I kept going. It took about 5 or 6 iterations of the most outlandish things. And by the way, did you know about this?
Ah.
He turns to me and goes, you're joking, right?
Yeah,
I said,
yeah,
I've been joking all along.
Jack LaLanne was active in that time, and he was a big deal. I mean, he kept going for years afterwards. Now, I don't know if it's actually Jumping Jack Flash, but he has got some influence in that community at the time. He was kind of big then. I have to look that up. Where did the origin of the song come from? Because that's what I thought when you said it. It kind of connected.
If that's true, then I'm going to have to get back to that guy. I was just talking with him yesterday.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, Google, what's the origin of the song Jumping Jack Flash?
Here's what I found on the web.
It's a song by English rock Rolling Stones, released as a single in '68 called Supernatural Delta Blues by way of swinging London. The song is perceived by some as the band's return to their blues roots after a Baroque pop and
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that the Rolling Stones started off as a total blues band.
Heard on their preceding albums, Aftermath, one of the group's most popular, recognizable songs is featured in films and has been covered by numerous performers, blah, 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 blah. Leon Russell, he just passed away. To date, it's the band's most performed song. The band has played it over 1,100 times in concert. So what is the origin, please?
It's interesting that's their most played song. That's very interesting.
Began during Baker's Banquet sessions of '68. Jagger wrote the lyrics while staying at Richard's country house when they were awoken one morning by the clumping footsteps of his gardener, Jack Dyer, walking past the window. Surprised, Jagger asked what it was, and Richards responded, "Oh, that's Jack. That's Jumpin' Jack."
It's
The
from the
lyrics
garden.
evolved from there.
Brilliant. Not Jack LaLanne.
That's good. All right.
I have heard some after a story of Jack LaLanne, and in that era though, he did some story that he connected to.
Yeah.
You good, Myles?
Yeah, man.
You want a roller?
You know what I find is very, for me, stress relaxing sometimes? Just stretching my hamstrings. I don't know why, it has a profound effect for some reason. I don't know why.
Attached to your back,
I found a great way to stretch my hamstrings like this. It doesn't put stress on my back.
Oh, for me, I just put one foot out behind you. Do it like this, do one at a time. Especially that calf hamstring. No,
I'd be conscious of these things,
That's right. I don't stretch enough after work.
just in general.
Do you have a roller?
Yes.
You do?
This thing here?
For the muscles.
No, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's what you mean, but this might have the same effect, I think. Is this what you...
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Duro.
give it.
Good.
One for you.
you want one?
You guys have everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, full service, man, full service.
Full service.
Really? Awesome.
I'm a little like a children.
Awesome. Okay, can we still do the lesson like this?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. You know, I'll just let it play then. I'll put the sound on.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right.
I'd rather not though, because
Oh,
Oh.
I don't necessarily. Whenever I
Yeah.
hear robotic stuff,
Ah.
I'm not really.
Okay. Well, the sound would be me reading it in this case.
Oh, but
still, but the thing is, what with Miles, Leon, in terms of Miles
Yeah.
reading it, he does the
Oh,
thing
hey,
which is
whichever
really
way is
good.
best for you, no problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Read it, Miles.
It works.
cool.
Right.
You can read it.
Yeah,
You can turn the thing. Yeah.
Okay. Hang on, let me sit over there.
How can we look at this laptop differently?
Moment different. Yeah, all right.
Can you? Is it good?
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you can read, that's the key thing. There we go. All right.
How can I rupture my anus differently?
Alright, what an awesome
We're being
question. Right. Perhaps ask where or what is the gift in it. We'll get to the stuff in a moment. So it's all just preamble, so you know.
Yeah, people say, what is the lesson in this?
Right.
Or what is the
Or
gift
alright. So I have to back up just a little bit here because we need the initial context because all of these are responses to that initial question. So let me just go back up some. So we're saying here, shifting where we are and how we feel, how we think, and how we perceive is essential to learning. This session presents a list of options for shifting in ways which enable change. Looking at life and ourselves differently is an essential ingredient for personal transformation, right? So this session presents a list of options for shifting in ways which enable change. So that's what we're doing now, right? So the question is, and then there's a whole bunch of answers, just to get the idea of the context. How can I look at this moment differently? And now we're going to get up all of the next slides. Each one is going to be answering that question. Right, what an awesome question. Perhaps ask where or what is the gift in it, in this moment, in other words, right? That's the first perspective shift. Or, do I absolutely have to feel this exact way, be this way? What if I choose to feel differently, be differently, right this second? Change. Okay, so you keep reading. But you see what we're doing now, right? We're asking this chapter, how can I be different in this moment? That's the question we're answering.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, please.
How is this making me feel? To get in touch with my feelings? Because
Exactly.
in the past, I've had trouble to
Right.
allow myself to
Do
feel.
I absolutely have to feel this exact way?
How about this way?
Just being aware that there's a feeling in there.
How about this?
In me.
Right.
What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Do I have to feel this way?
Oh,
How
yeah.
else can I feel?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's another way of saying the slide. Exactly.
How else can I view this to see it as?
Exactly. It's basically how can I change in this moment? I'm stuck in my bubble. How can I get out of my bubble? This is what
How
we're
can I
doing.
pop my bubble?
Right. So what am I unaware of in this moment? That's a question you can ask yourself to get you out of the bubble, right? That's what we're doing. We're saying these are all questions that you can ask yourself to get out of the bubble.
And that's the tricky part because people aren't aware of what they're not aware of.
Precisely. Right, exactly. And so this is a whole list of stuff that if you're in a bubble, you can come and you can come back to this list and you can say, oh, this is to leverage me out of
We
it.
should probably do some sort of real life perspective shifting exercises, like if you're feeling sad.
Exactly. Right. Now that's what the way this is set up now. At the end of this, the takeaway session, we say, okay, when were you in your life in a bubble? And then people say, okay, what were you stuck with on this week? And then we say, okay, you were stuck with this. Okay, yeah, I had this fight with my boyfriend or whatever. All right, so ask these questions, go through it. Okay, what were you unaware of at that time? And you see, then we make it pertinent and relevant to them. So this is just to get them acquainted with the material. And then later on, through the takeaway, when they come and bring this back again, now it makes it pertinent and relevant. Precisely what you're saying, we then do in the live session. Exactly. Those live sessions is where the actual bulk of the learning and the growth takes place and the sharing.
Have you taken some courses yourself?
No.
In this kind of course,
In this context too?
I've
Just like,
taken very little courses throughout the entirety of my life, and I'm trying to think of any course that might have, definitely not this kind of course.
I would say there's a formulaic and somewhat useful application for their structure.
Yeah. That could very well be.
And I would love to like take the content of this and almost like take what's most valuable and then plug it into a structure.
Right. Oh, absolutely, we can do
I
that.
just- yeah.
Keep in mind that this is again, I'm making this course for life coaches and for like CEOs and so
CEOs.
forth. So it's not necessarily geared for that, somebody who's so much struggling with the particular issues like dating and wine. It's more geared towards the ability to recommunicate this. So you kind of
Yes.
already, there's an implication that you're sort of kind of already there and you're getting it, but now you're just fine-tuning it and you're expanding what you have and you're getting the groundwork, the formulations so that you can go and do exactly what you're doing. You're in precisely the mindset that I am actually after, or we are after. So exactly what you're doing is exactly what we want you to be doing. To say, how can I put this into a format that is going to connect to my employees, my followers, my clients?
How
Exactly.
can apply this perspective shift to
Right.
perspective
Exactly.
shift
Exactly.
by teachings?
But that's why I said for you guys to start to shift. Your reading is that also when you're giving your feedback, you're giving it from the instructor point of view, right? And that's what you're actually applying in its fullness now, which is fantastic.
You're fantastic.
Thank you.
Different.
All right, so
You're fantastic.
yeah,
You're amazing.
so
Oh, I'm amazing.
right. Yeah, we're fantastic and you're amazing. Right. Okay, so how can I change my perspective? What is the abstract of now, symbolically, metaphorically? We have to go through this fairly quickly because otherwise they lose their list effect. Right?
I like that graphic.
Yeah.
Or if I were the universe, what would I tell myself right now?
That's a good question.
There's more.
Ooh.
Or remember past moments where you shifted perspective, changed, etc. Or if I'm a character in a novel, what can I do? That would change the plot significantly.
It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Little thought. Now, each of these are individual posts. Right? So you got a problem, you're stuck in something, well, just, what would happen if you... That's a nice conversation starter right there for a post, isn't it? Say, what would you do in your current situation, whatever your problem is, that if you were a character novel would change the plot significantly?
Could be.
Well, you just automatically you're shifting perspective on that problem. Let's take that girl with the post this morning. We asked her this question, say, hey, if you were a character in a novel, what would you do to change the plot
So
significantly?
That's a
you're
good
getting
thing
them
to
out of their
remember.
bubble and they're looking at it from over here. From
Exactly.
up here.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
out from outside
Zoom.
themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all of this is exactly that, to give you some different angle to come at it.
Or how can I surprise myself? What would I ordinarily not do? That's a tough one. Because you're used to doing what you normally do.
Exactly.
How would you
People
surprise
want the
yourself?
answers
Exactly.
to them.
And again, too, we always want that more. We're not just going to say, hey, shift your perspective, solve the negative. We want the replacement. This is exactly the replacement, right?
That's the Plato's allegory of the cave right there, and you just unveil it, and sunlight comes through.
There you go. And see, we're in the cave looking
Now
at
you're
it.
thinking about new possibilities.
There you go. Exactly. Beautiful.
It's a whole new world.
It's a whole new world, exactly.
It's,
It's a brave
it's
new
a
world.
song. It's,
Since we have to go Mr. Aldous Huxley and his
New world.
futuristic world, right? Remember Brave New World, Aldous Huxley?
Oh, yeah.
It's a magical place for you and me.
Exactly,
Yes.
right. What can I align to? What is anomalous? Now, that anomalous is going to tie in later. That's a very loaded little thing plus align. Very loaded, it's a setup for later. We're going to connect to that.
Well, wait a minute. Let's explain that a little bit.
Rabbit hole. It's a whole module. It's the attunement module. There's attunement, alignment, and
But when you
anomalous.
say anomalous, you mean what's similar?
No, what is anomalous? What's odd? What's unusual?
odd.
What
Okay.
doesn't fit to pattern?
Anomalies,
Right.
that's
Anomalies
the
stop
crux
it.
of- yes.
I can
Yeah.
explain this
It's the
quickly.
crux of the matter.
You ready?
Yes.
So, to be attuned means that, like, if you're surfing, right, you're placing yourself in a position where you can catch the wave. The moment where you catch the wave is when you are aligned.
Yes.
So, here in this, if you're trying to think outside of your current situation, you would think, if I'm not aligned with this wave, if I'm not catching it, if I'm not where I want to be, is there something outside of this that I can look for, an anomaly that I haven't noticed yet before, that can help me get back on my own path?
And that because if you're not in a situation where you're actually perceiving the waves coming in, you need to actually find an anomaly, which is just waves, another mechanism or metaphor for energy. sometimes they might be flat, right? So you look for some weird little thing that's, okay, that's the actual wave coming in. It's this rogue wave. That's what an anomaly is.
What haven't I noticed before that could
Right.
help me solve this problem?
Right. That's the anomaly, right? And anomalies, when you look at it, to go a little deeper into it, we look at them symbolically and metaphorically. And because that
Inside
then,
out.
when anything you look at that's anomalous, it's kind of open for interpretation. That interpretation is going to connect to what's going on inside you and your problem, and that merging of the two is going to lead you to, it's like a prompt, like a hint, like a suggestion, and it's going to put you on that path to resolve.
So that's back to the quote that I was referring to yesterday about Einstein saying that the thinking that got you into the problem is not going to get you out of the problem. So
Right.
you're saying get out of the thinking.
Exactly. The anomaly takes you out of your known, and it is the connectivity to the
Right.
unknown that by default you need to learn. That's exactly it. Precisely.
Yeah.
So anomalies are huge, and that's the little triangle with attunement. It's attunement, alignment, and anomalies. It's the little 3 A's there. Yeah, very cool.
Can't read it.
If I were to anticipate the next moments and from that extrapolate, what do I need to do? I think I had a different color on the text here, but I don't know. I'll have
If I could see a solution and come up with one, even if I don't yet to know how, if I were to make small steps to get there, what would I do?
That's good.
But also,
Yeah.
this is very particularly with
Extrapolation.
anticipation and extrapolation, which is taking the pattern of now and extending it into the future. And extrapolation is a whole skill, the same with anticipation.
Tool.
Because you know about statistical extrapolation. You have to be very careful of saying the pattern is going to continue infinity.
right.
It doesn't. It's the whole extrapolation of population growth. They screw it up every time, and they just assume it's going to. They just don't take into account that population declines with an increase in wealth, right?
Yeah, they try to extrapolate the GNP from this tax cut, and it's totally
It
wrong.
makes no exactly. So extrapolation, you have to account for variable, but it's a skill. But still, that ability to project into the future, that at least gives us some measure of probability how things go. So it's a strategic element, and it's really profound when it comes to our regular
Yep.
lives to use that. You go on a date, extrapolate it. Where is this heading? Where is this going? If you're really honest, most of the time you know, well, it's going to be a one-night stand or whatever. It's not going anywhere. You can choose to do it in that thing, be honest about it, or don't do it at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So extrapolation when it comes to dating, very, very potent. Yeah. Same thing with anticipate. Be ready for what might go. STDs, take a comment. Very simple. I'm being very literal and precise, but you said you wanted in follower language. That's their logic, no? Okay. That's their need, right? All right. Go ahead.
These questions are all perspectives with implications. As spirit warriors, as your personal equivalent, it's imperative we learn to get into this new habit of thinking differently, of asking questions, of assisting we can, and of holding ourselves accountable for our own state of being.
Yeah. Accountability. There we go.
Ah,
Binoculars.
my spectacles. The key issue here in this session is breaking that certainty that there's little or nothing we can do. That's never the case. Learning to shift and see the options is vitally necessary, deeply transformative, and part of a spirit warrior's arsenal of potency.
Like that. Arsenal
Arsenal,
potency. I
yes,
forgot now,
I
right?
love that
That's very
too.
nice. All right, cool.
Arsenal.
Now think of that, just this last point here, right? This last chapter of the goal this morning, right? That issue here is breaking the certainty that there's little or nothing we can do.
Mm-hmm.
That's depression right there, the certainty that there's little or nothing we can do. How certain are you? Isn't that actually an arrogant point? Kind of is in a way.
Yeah.
Assuming that everyone has the same tools.
To assume there's nothing you can do.
Oh,
Right.
That's the arrogance that I'm saying.
Yep.
For depression. When you point out, now okay, suicide, you're already on a tricky. When you just come to me with depression, I'll point out and say, hey, you're being arrogant to assume there's nothing you can do and that's why you're depressed. That's just a flat out arrogant deal, sorry.
you're gonna.
Maybe make them more depressed perhaps, but also maybe it's going to leverage you a little bit to say,
I would use a
"Oh,
different word choice than arrogant then.
no, I want to get you riled up. You're depressed and you get mad at me, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm getting
because then you
energized,
will
I'm getting
no
motivated,
longer
it's showing
be
me that shit
depressed.
matters to you.
You want
I
to
say,
shake them up.
I say,
Yeah.
fantastic. You see, something does matter to you.
Oh, because
We're
now you're
connected
pissed
to
off,
that.
you're not depressed.
Exactly. I'd rather have you pissed off than depressed. Now you've got the energy to do something. This matters to you. You don't like to be called arrogant. Okay, so change it. Do something about it.
There's a lesson here when he's saying to make a point, you get them riled up. stir the emotion, stir the pot a little bit, it'll have more of an impact.
Right.
Because it's a
Right.
motive.
Emphasis.
Emphasis.
Also. Right. And energy, but particularly with depression. I'm very specific in that case of depression. Right. Now you're right. It might not actually solve the depression, but it at least kicks you out of that. Because now I'm challenging you. I'm saying, you know what? Prove to me that you're not arrogant in insisting that there's nothing you can do. You now have to prove to me that there is something you can do. When you prove to me that you're not arrogant, which you have to prove there's something not to do, problem solved. It's a manipulation. It is a manipulation, but it's a manipulation with strategic ethics and good intent. Right?
Well,
And I'll even tell you, look, I'm manipulating you. I'm calling you arrogant on purpose because, yes, I want to challenge you. Prove to me that you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a post that's somewhat challenging, the idea is you get a lot more engagement.
Right.
Because people are...
But this was more my
Sure,
idea here
sure.
was just to kick you out of that certainty. And the leverage mechanism of that certainty that there's nothing you can do is to challenge somebody's self-importance, in other words, their arrogance, because they're defensive to
Or
it.
challenge an assumption. Everybody assumes X, and if you challenge that, have you perceived Y?
Perspective shift.
Why then is it arrogant and not just?
It's not necessarily arrogance. I'm merely using arrogance because exactly it bothers you, it touches you, and it's like, no, but why the fuck is it arrogance? You're thinking about it. It's exactly, arrogance is such a sensitive touch
No,
point.
because then they're gonna. Yeah, it's gonna create your desired effect, but that energy is gonna be used towards something differently. So you have to work twice as
what
hard
is-
to get them to switch their energy to the actual point you're making.
Well, no, you say to prove to me that you're not arrogant, you have to say that there is something that you can do.
I can't even prove that you're arrogant.
Say again?
How do you prove that they're arrogant in the first place?
Because they just believe it without having substantiation.
They
That's
made,
how you
they
prove
made an
arrogance.
assumption that there's no
If-
other
if you
choice.
So they're
cannot-
ignorant,
right?
not arrogant.
Maybe so, but you're claiming it with a certainty. You're depressed. That's claiming that with a certainty. You're insisting that your truth is right because it's your truth. That's arrogance, isn't it?
Isn't that what we're telling people to do?
Now, I want them to say, yes, do exactly what you're doing. To say, but actually I wasn't being aggressive. I just didn't know that I didn't have options. But that's the point. You assumed there weren't options. That's how you came to believe there weren't options. Now, you actually weren't arrogant through not proving that you were arrogant. If I just call you ignorant, you say, yeah, I am ignorant. Okay, so I don't know any better. It doesn't necessarily get energy motivation coming out of it. I agree with you, there could potentially be better ways, but it's one particular way, depending on the individual, of course. But just in general. So all of these are different aspects of solving the same problem. But for a depressed person particularly, they can shift to anger rather than
be energized.
fairly easily, I found, rather than, for instance, to say, okay, the enthusiasm of looking for more. They don't have energy for the enthusiasm. You can piss them off, though.
So anyone who's certain about anything is arrogant.
No. You're only certain when you're insisting it's right because it's your opinion. That's what makes you arrogant. It's right because it's my opinion, not facts because it's my opinion. That's what makes you arrogant. Yeah. But so, yes, when I'm calling somebody arrogant here, I know it's not actually accurate. I'm doing it with an intentionally being inaccurate to stimulate them to get it out, to say, but I'm not being arrogant. People really object to being called arrogant when they're not being arrogant. And now they're going to prove to you that they're not arrogant. Exactly what you did. You objected to that. And I said, well, okay, prove to me you're not arrogant. Show me exactly how there are other options. You're insisting there are options just because you think there are options. So I'm going to make the case that you are arrogant. I know you're not actually arrogant, but you have to prove it back to me, and you get energized to prove it back to me. The motivation, the depression is way back there now. Now we get into this whole discussion of what your options are. Eventually I say, yeah, I agree, you're not arrogant. You've proven to me that there are other options. Okay, now you've proven to yourself that these are real options, right? You say, yeah, they're real options. Okay. Yeah, I hear you, mate.
Still, one has to be careful.
No, and I do hear you.
Terms
You're
of-
making a very good point. There are times you have to do, I'm coming at it like just kind of jumping at the end of it. In actual application, it's more subtle than that. You're going to go more slowly.
Right.
And
I'm
more
thinking
detailed.
about having said that to that girl. Like, you're
Right.
just being arrogant.
No, but
You're
that's what I said.
suicidal.
I said you
That's
can't
very
say it. No.
sensitive.
Suicidal is different to depressed. That's why I did mention that in the beginning. Sorry, I may have missed that point. But I said you can't say it to the girl because she's in that suicidal space. But if they were just in the depressed space, then you could say it. Sorry, I did qualify that. Yeah, no, you don't want to say this because a depressed person, it might just tip them over the edge. That's the problem with suicidal. You know, you don't really know what can do or can't do, so you just have to do the best you
The
can.
difference between depression and X is arrogance. That's gonna stir up some trouble. Let's see what it just did to you.
Right,
Yeah, I
right,
don't see
right,
it.
right.
I don't see
The difference between
Depression.
depression and solution.
Is arrogance.
Yeah,
Problem and
Thinking
solution.
that there are no
Right.
other solutions.
Oh, that's
Right.
all.
right. The difference between insisting on your depression and actually finding a solution is the arrogance of insistence.
That's
Mm.
different.
That is different.
Yeah.
Because that's the point.
Or the
It's that
insistence about-
kind of, you know, I mean, yes, they aren't actually arrogant, but I'm making kind of a loose case for it to say the fact that you're insisting on that there isn't a solution to your problem, which is why you're depressed, right? That's kind of an arrogance. Kind of an arrogance.
Kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
The point is, it's not exactly accurate, but because arrogance is such a touchstone, it always triggers and fires up people. That's the point of it. Prove to me that you're not arrogant, that there are solutions, fine. And I'll say you're not arrogant, but I've also now you forced the solution. Which in a way says, you know, I kind of was arrogant a little bit because I just believed my own crap that there weren't solutions. So it's kind of true a little bit, no. Not exactly, because yes, some of it
It's
you get
tough.
caught in a bubble. Your awareness is, your energy is so low that your awareness has shrunk so much that you don't have the energy to find and look for solutions. You're not actually being arrogant.
That it's always an impossibility.
The
for
arrogance
some.
doesn't come from not finding solutions. It's arrogant about being depressed about not finding solutions. That's the thing that makes you a little bit arrogant. Because you're insisting that there isn't a solution, right? That's why you're depressed.
And we're arrogant for thinking that there is.
Fine, fair enough.
Insisting that there are.
Maybe so, but I'd rather insist in my arrogance that there are solutions and not be depressed and have to live with arrogance and be happy at the same time than be arrogant and depressed.
Arrogance isn't the difference. Because you can be arrogant in both.
Right, I agree.
So-
But it's a tool for getting out there. So I said, yes, it's not actually accurate.
I
It
know.
isn't actually accurate. It's just a tool to get that energy out. Because it riles people up. And when you're depressed, fuck, I couldn't be bothered. I have no energy to do anything, right? So when you get that gift of energy, somebody calling up, cool, man, are you energized? So you're actually starting to do something.
And since you're up and about anyway, now you might as well start
Right.
working on
Right.
doing something for
Right.
yourself.
So maybe put that out as a post. Say, hey, if you're depressed, if you get riled up, if somebody comes and makes you angry, does that actually help you to get out of the depression
That's
somewhat?
different. Yeah.
Would you rather be angry than depressed? See what I'm saying? Does the anger help you perspective shift on the thing? Does it motivate you? It's just a whole topic to explore.
Do we want to explore those topics?
You're right,
I mean,
exactly.
because we want to
Depressed
go with
anger to
uplifting
something
stuff.
else.
Exactly. Through the energizing of the anger, you now say, oh, now I'm no longer depressed. Now I can actually use that energy to look for solutions, right? Because now I'm actually motivated. So it's a tool that you can use to get out of depression. Because the girl said, people come say, smile, just smile and you'll be fine. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. But anger might work to make that initial shift. And then we go iterations to a new thing, to something else, right? It's just an energy motivating tool. Because we do get, when we get angry, we get energized, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you energize a depression? Isn't that the real issue with depression, really? They're stuck in the bubble because they don't have energy to go outside the bubble, right? That's the real problem with depression, pretty much, right? So they're not actually insisting on there's no solutions, they just don't have the energy to look for more solutions. All they know is what they have, and that's the reality for them, right? They don't have energy to connect to more, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So we're using anger as an energy leveraging mechanism to break you out of that bubble of no
Build up
energy.
some
It could be effective, but is it the best, most efficient?
I don't know. I'm not saying it's the most
Exactly.
effective.
Well, let's think of options.
Right. No, right. But I'm just
I
saying,
think
though, I know for sure that it is a viable
It
option,
is, it
right?
is,
So,
yeah.
so definitely it's a viable. There might be more viable ones. You know, if I
Why
think
not
of
just talk about energy management in general
right,
as opposed
right.
to talk
But
about
that's the problem, though.
down
When somebody's
subject
depressed,
and also one that
Olivia,
not really.
if
we
you don't
the
have
credentials.
energy to listen to a conversation, doesn't matter what the person says, you don't want to hear it. You don't have energy to actually hear anything.
The penetration, yeah.
So-
to listen, to actually really listen.
And
You
you'll
just don't
only-
care. You just sort of
That's the
fucking
key.
leave me alone, leave me alone,
That's
leave
the
me
case
alone.
with addiction too.
Exactly.
To drugs, to alcohol,
Right.
they don't want to listen. They're just so,
Right.
where am I going to get my next
Right.
drink?
Right.
That's
So-
what they're thinking about all the time.
We said about appropriateness, and you remember asked me like, when is rape appropriate? Okay, when is terrorism appropriate? When it comes to depression. To break somebody out of depression. In this case, I'm being kind of a terrorist. I'm sort of forcing you by calling you arrogant to leverage you, to jump you up, right?
But is that
It's
even-
kind of a terrorism in a way.
Is it necessary to take on that role of responsibility for someone else?
No, not unless they actually asked. I wouldn't do that unless somebody kind of opened for me to
So
do
then
it.
there's no point for me to make a post to get that energy.
Exactly.
No, but it might
you don't
not
want
be.
to
But
visit that.
right, no, but you can make a post in a general sense, which say it's a hypothetical. I can discuss hypotheticals all I like. Say, if I were depressed, this might be a way to get me out of it. I'm talking from personal experience. You see, so I'm saying this is a mechanism that can be useful for getting it out of it. So, and also for dealing with people who've asked me to help them with their depression.
What got you out of your depression? Was it anger? Were you pissed off?
I was angry at myself. I was desperate.
Right.
You can talk about your own personal experience if you want to go there.
Right. Now
I mean, don't we want to
desperation,
go on
though,
a good
desperation
bit
is
of
a very
this?
powerful motivator, but it's also dangerous. Because if now we say, hey, you know what? If I start, when you're in the depressed thing and I start making the case for the why it's a desperate act, now you get into that immersion of why it is exactly a desperate act, and it just makes the whole thing worse. You see what I mean?
That's what I'm
It's a
thinking about
downward
the
spiral that
topics.
you're looking to
to
spiral
not-
out
we
of.
want to,
So I
we
agree
know
with you.
these
It does feel
exist.
like there should be.
and we want to.
Yes, humor can be
we
a
want,
way to
in
break
terms of
depression.
providing tools,
What
but
is
they're
humor?
tools that
Humor.
could be
Yeah,
applied
humor, yeah.
to
Now,
depression and all these things. But
you're
not to
depressed
talk
and
about
I
the
come along and
subject
I
itself.
absolutely
Really
have just
engaged.
no,
It's the same with
it's
the
like I'm in my
yes.
own oblivion bubble.
Yes, I
So
wrote the
far-
book.
And I don't even know
So
you're
far
depressed.
it's
And I just
something
kind of
about dating
do my
relationships,
humor shit.
so
I'm just,
getting
Yeah.
and then you find you can't kind of
Yeah.
help yourself laughing and you start laughing even
Yes.
though you're depressed. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
So humor can also be that leverage point.
Two
But
verbs.
that is a
Two
real
verbs.
profound skill that I don't necessarily personally always have.
It doesn't not necessarily have to be humor. It's just any sort of energy
Right.
interaction.
Right,
I
exactly.
walked into a Smoothie King the other day and the guy was like, "Yeah, I don't want to
Right.
be here. I want to go home."
Right. So what we're doing really is what you want to do is to abstract this is to shift attention onto something else. So really the key to it is okay, anger automatically it's a distraction, yes. Anger pulls you right out of that from depression into anger. It's very quick and easy, it's very immediate. Humor can do the same thing. Like I was saying, the examples you have to be kind of oblivious and just do your humor. But anything that would really catch their interest and attention, you want to grab their attention with something. So an anomaly is a very good way of doing this. If you can be anomalous, for instance, one way to do this, this I've actually used with people, Myles, is that I come and ask them to help me with my problem. Now, not my personal problem, but say, hey, I want your help. I've got a problem that I need to solve. Somebody else's problem, a bigger problem, that I'm now asking for your help problem. That's a very powerful leveraging mechanism sometimes, because people have a very strong innate desire to help, even though they might be depressed. They can't help themselves by wanting to help. So, it's whatever is something of pertinence and relevance, because another person will say, yeah, I'm arrogant, so fuck you, I don't care, so what? Yeah, you're right. And that's why I'm depressed, because I'm arrogant. Just make it worse. So it's very contextual. So it won't always work, but depending on the person. It's what, in other words, to abstract what we're doing, we're looking at for an energy point for something that fires them up. Now, if you're dealing with somebody you don't know very well, you kind of got to throw darts at it and see where you fire and trigger. So you try humor, you try anger, you try an anomaly, you try something that's of interest. I saw there's something really weird, like something really interesting that's fascinating for you. Okay, you talk about this, they discovered a real wormhole or some shit, you know what I mean? You bring up something that's like, oh wow, I didn't know that, especially something that's like a game changer.
Or the engagement in
Right.
anomalies.
Right, anything that engages their attention, because that's the trick to get out of depression, is to get your attention to shift away from the depression onto something else, right?
Yeah, it works.
Right.
To get you to start thinking about
Right.
different
So
options.
to answer your question, what else is there beside anger? Anything that will actually grab the person's attention, right?
this can be a rabbit hole to get into with
Yeah.
the kind of post that
Exactly.
he's doing, because he's
Right.
not a therapist.
No.
Yeah.
And if people want to keep asking questions to his responses, it can get
Messy.
very messy,
Yeah.
and other people can get involved. And
Right.
this is not therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. However, though, what you can do is you can share the abstract of the solution. To say, for instance, you can stir that thing with saying, hey, anger is a way to break out of it, if that helps you or not. You're not saying do this, you're just saying this is a potential
Yeah.
technique you can
Yeah.
try. So it all depends on the presentation and how you put it. And then you can
Yeah.
go a little
But
further.
that topic is
and-
done though.
Right, but I mean, you can say a little
Finish.
further, no, I'm just saying to go a little further on that, you could say, hey, but actually the mechanism is something that grabs your attention. Right? That's the key, is find something that will actually grab your attention and pull it out.
But so far, the theme of his Instagram is mostly relationships and dating and things.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
they're down at this level. This
Yeah.
stuff is
yeah, we don't
Right.
want to
Oh, no, I
go
know
there.
that,
Yeah.
But it's the translation mechanism. That's why
Right,
I'm
right.
paying attention to it and saying how it filters down to that bottom level.
yeah.
Yeah, no, very cool. All right. We can ask, do I need to believe it's different before I can act without believing? That's real simple. Do I need to believe it's different before I can act? Is that absolutely essential, or can I act without believing?
You can believe without believing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, we know it's different.
Right. Again, that's geared for the top level, because you know about believing without believing. If somebody just sees it on their own, they go like, what the hell do you mean here?
It's a bubble.
You
I don't
bring in
know.
that concept of believing without believing. Saying, you know what, you don't have to, it can be
More.
either way. Right. Trust without trusting. Okay. What do I need to change in myself to make the moment what I want it to be?
Yeah, that's just a
Right.
summary of the other.
Right,
slides.
exactly. Now, this isn't necessarily for people stuck in depression. This is people who are stuck in their lives. And they just, yeah, things aren't so right, they're not working right. Again, apply this to relationships. What do
So-
I need to change in myself?
So it's very common that people are worker bee drones or whatever,
Right.
and then they ask themselves, is this all there is to life? I just paid
Exactly.
a mortgage, but
Exactly.
what do I need to change? And then they're like, I don't know.
Right. But this question is specifically saying, what do I need to change in myself to make the moment?
okay, well that is the crux right there
Exactly.
of the life change, what do we call it, the life
The real self.
movement, real self-movement. How do I change myself so I can discover the more, so I can have better relationships, so I can have a better relationship with myself and thus.
And we're getting
world.
even more particular. It's not how do I change myself, it's what do I need to, very specifically saying what precisely, really zoom in on it, right? We can change our ability perspective.
Now, wait a minute, if we can have questions that make people think of what they could change about
Right.
themselves
Right.
for introspection,
Right.
maybe opposed
Each
to-
of these are they basically a title for a whole things that can come underneath.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I think the posts are going to have to be something that draws attention to the fact that they need help in
Right,
some
exactly.
sort of way.
Absolutely.
And then the
Right.
courses are going to help solve that problem.
Right.
But we just have to draw out the problem.
Right.
We don't need to go into all.
No.
Yeah.
No, I agree. So this is for us. This again.
Yeah,
this
I
is geared
understand
for-
that.
Right. So no, but I like what you're saying. I just want to connect it back to the previous post. So if you take that and you make it to a post, what do I need to change in myself to make this moment better? Right. That may be your title, and then you give the answer to say that's a really difficult question. That is a profoundly difficult question to ask from inside ourselves. When we're stuck in life, that's because we don't have that answer to what do I need to change in myself. Because if you knew, you would change it, right? So this is the time when you need to step and reach outside of yourself for that external perspective. So now your post is about asking for help, right? That question leads to asking for help. Just connect. Right.
You already know some of the pain points of your target audience, and you're discovering more all the time as they engage and interact.
We need to have something to lead them towards so that they can
Right.
get this help. So
Right, and that's what that question was. It leads you by saying, you ask a question to which you know they do not have the answer.
I meant like on the back end, we need to have the course. Right?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you can't be doing this if you don't actually have the thing in place to offer for them.
Right.
Exactly. Alright. Or am I assuming full responsibility for the decisions I made which brought me to this success? That's usually a really prime point. I mean, you want to solve shit, say, hey, you are assuming responsibility for your choice to stay alive? No, you're not. That's the complaining song.
Say it one more time.
They're not assuming responsibility for their choice to remain alive, knowing shit could happen. That's why they're complaining. So, okay, when you assume full responsibility, no more complaints. So, alright.
I want to write that question down.
Oh.
The how did you say it that first time you said it that when I came in here? When you asked people,
I said, in this moment right now. It's actually in the course coming later on, that exact thing, but we can write it down again. In this moment right now, do you the individual, know shit is going to happen in future?
know that shit is gonna happen.
Yeah, just shit is a general term, you know, instead of saying all the variation, to condense it.
It will happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
The answer is, yes you do. Alright, and the next thing would be, knowing that shit can happen in the future, do you choose to remain alive this moment?
Knowing that shit will happen.
Or could happen, not will, but could happen.
It always happens.
I know, but we want to lock it in with our intent, so we're just careful with our language. So knowing that shit could happen in the future, do you choose to remain alive right now?
You know, people have problems. Everybody has problems. Some people don't think there are answers to their problems and they get depressed. But if you just look at it, shift the perspective that life is a series of problems, and as you put the effort into solving them, you grow and you learn.
Right. Just to finish this, there's a little more on that here. And the next thing, if you say yes, you're assuming responsibility for the rest of your life, which means you cannot complain ever again.
Do you guys watch TV from this?
No.
No.
It's not helpful.
You don't use it?
So that's the
Oh,
crux
yeah.
point there, right? Is
Yeah, I
that
like sitting here.
when you
and
really
I
assume
have
full
another
responsibility,
lounger over there.
it mixes
I
complaint.
like looking out.
You can't complain
You
when
open
you
the
assume
door.
responsibility.
Mhm.
And that's usually where
Yeah.
people are stuck. What are they doing? They're bitching and moaning, they're complaining because they made shitty decisions and the crap is happening and they know that really, and they're just trying to get out of it and they want to assume full responsibility. It's almost always inevitably the type of problem you hear online. That's the bottom line.
Yes, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of why they do that too.
Oh, wow.
Based
Go ahead.
on the bullshit.
Right.
And they're seeking everything outside of themselves, trying to find their worth in the external, and therefore, if your perspective is always outside of yourself, then you're never going to take full responsibility for anything.
And it's justification and validating and substantiating the fact that they are not doing what they should do.
And it's damn arrogant too.
That assumes awareness of what they should do.
Right. But they know they're not doing what they know they're not doing what they should do. That's the issue. And they want to validate and justify that laziness.
They don't understand it, they don't know why.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of people who know precisely that I should do
It's
this,
just
but I'm
below
not
the
doing it.
surface,
They
but
don't
it's
make the
there.
effort. They
Yeah.
know
Yeah,
they know
that's-
consciously that they do.
That's small, we're thinking bigger picture here.
Right. Well, no, in the big picture, they're not actually addressing their life issues. They don't want to get into heavy conversations and shit like that. They know that
They're shirking their responsibility.
Yes, but that's still a micro approach to it.
Sorry, I'm lost. I'm